You guys can turn your cameras on because it's definitely it's a smaller group. So if you get your cameras, go ahead, turn them on. You can unmute yourselves if you don't want to talk, then just use the chat and type in that. Okay. So with that, do you guys have any particular questions? Are you guys having any problems, or how can we help you guys?
I think you addressed quite a few of the issues, in the previous call.
Yep.
I know people are concerned, about deals closing. Like I know my fiance's, dealing with a situation where they had an estate sale of her dad's house, and they're worried about the closing at the end of April. So it's a question of, are the lawyers still working, and are the banks still going to approve mortgages unless I don't know if it was a cash deal or not, but I think that's the biggest fear a lot of people are having when it comes to real estate right now.
Okay, so I'll talk about the lawyer side, and maybe Daria, you can talk about the mortgage side. So in regards to the lawyers, yes, things have changed there. I don't believe they have their clients that are actually coming into the office. However, what they're allowing them to do now is sign the paperwork at home, and they're doing like a video conference to actually see that they're there and they're actually signing the documents. So there is a workaround. And again, when we talk about those silver linings, this is something before that the lawyers were never allowed to do. And now something like this has now put them in a situation where they can now do this. And going forward, this is something now that has been innovated, and I bet you it will continue to happen. Right. So from a lawyer standpoint, it's fine. They're still closing.
Yeah, and also just to further add to that too, I think from some of the lawyers that I've been speaking to are basically just saying the same thing, especially if that client is coming from a referral source from them, with a client that they've already done business with in the past, then it's a much easier process for them to close. With respect to the banks and the mortgages, yes, there could be a bit of a delay. But with that too, going back to my point about, the bank's, position and not wanting to hold real estate, I've heard, I haven't had this happen to any of my deals, but I have heard from some of my lenders that if there's a situation where that person has lost their income, they're literally just going to be pushing that mortgage through.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah. They just don't want to, they don't want to have a whole bunch of, property on their hands that, they don't want that. They want to try to work with everybody to make sure that those mortgages are being funded. So,
well, the thing is, as you're saying with the banks, is just because you don't have a job today, they know you're going to get another job tomorrow. It may not be at the same level, but they're confident that you're going to replace your income.
Yeah, and they're just kind of, it's down to the 11th hour, right? They don't want to hold it up. I mean, that's what I've heard. Like I said, for none of that, like that has not happened to any of my deals, but that's what I've heard. Mm-hmm. It's just, they're going to push it through.
And this is almost like, it's outside of the control of so many people, so it's an act of God, essentially.
Yeah. And the other thing too is, when the bank is looking at the applicant, right? This is, again, like Gary said, just like one of those very crazy times, but this is a person who has had stable income, who has, good debt service ratio, who hasn't had any later missed payments in the past. Mm-hmm. I think they're taking character into consideration more than the fact that they don't have income right now.
You gonna say something, Chris?
Yeah, I was going to say that one of my clients had asked me a couple of weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago or so, it's along the same lines that, hey, what are the obligations now of a seller and a buyer to complete the transaction, right? Because obviously that's something now you just got to close, you just got a deal today, on your listing, or you're buying, and what's now to suggest that this is actually going to go through. So it's just something now that we are all requested or asked to put on our agreements of purchase and sale. And this comes directly from the real estate governing bodies to say that the parties herein acknowledge and agree that they are required to close this transaction notwithstanding any impacts of COVID-19, right? So, and I mean, there's some other stuff in there too, but effectively, this is something now that you are going to put on your agreement of purchase and sale to say that, okay, guys, once this is firm, it is a done deal. You're not backing out, because I think that's a lot of people's concerns. Seller, buyer backing out.
Let me ask this question for anybody that's on the call. And again, if you don't want to speak, that's okay. But there's nobody here that's going to bite you guys. So go ahead, turn your mics on. But who would like to go out and not go out, but do like a virtual property tour where you guys can take a look to see what's available out there, where we can maybe go in there with either myself and our contractor and go through a property that one of our investors has converted. Because again, Quentin, what were the numbers again for Peterborough in regards to listed and sold?
So they had 22 new listings that came on the market last week, and 11 that went conditional, and then 22 that firmed up.
Yeah. So it's still showing you that the market is still active.
Yeah.
Could it change a week from now? For sure. But
I think you got a great idea there, Gary. Even for people in general that don't necessarily or can't necessarily make your property tours when you plan on doing them in person, it gives us an idea to be able to see what a property tour and the kind of things that you guys talk about. I missed I wasn't able to make your last one, so that would be of interest to me, even if it was done as almost like a webinar type of thing as well.
Okay. Yeah, we talked about it this morning at our team meeting, so we'll kind of iron out the details in regards to that, and I think we can probably make that happen. I think it makes sense.
I would second that as well. Like I really like the idea of that, to just have a contractor and just to see like what it would be to kind of like go through the process of like duplexing that property that you have in your tour. I think that'd be a good idea.
Okay, cool. Is that Danny?
Yes, Danilo.
Okay. Hey, Danilo.
How are you?
Good. Yourself?
Good.
Good. Were you able to make it on the first call?
I was actually there right at the end, and I was looking at the chat that you guys posted as an interesting link regarding the rent. So I'll be looking into that.
Okay. Now, did you register for this event as well too, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So then what I'll do is I'll send out, cause I recorded that call. So I'll send it out so that you can watch the whole thing.
Perfect. Awesome. I had a quick question now that Vincent mentioned the numbers of like how active the market is. I don't know how much you covered this on your last call, but it's like, would you say that it's like more of a, like, are you guys getting like, if you're getting like multiple offers of like on properties, are like people like outbidding each other? Like in my head, I'm trying to figure out, is this kind of like a buyer's market or a seller's market, or is it like, is there a way to tell?
In Peterborough right now. So I wasn't out last week. The last time I was out was the week before that. And what we were still seeing multiple offers, but we weren't seeing 6-7 offers. We were seeing 2 to 4 offers on properties. So yeah, at this point in time, it's still very healthy market, and properties that are on the market that are priced well, they're gone immediately, right? So things aren't lasting.
A quick question. Are you thinking, or are you seeing people extending the closing dates instead of going from a 30-day, to possibly pushing out to a 60 or 90-day close, just to kind of see if they can get through this in the next month or two?
I think it's a case-by-case basis, right? Based on those individuals, right? Because as we know, when we're negotiating deals, price and closing dates are 2 of the biggest issues, right? So I think when that deal comes together, it's part of the negotiation between the seller and the buyer, right? So, who knows? It could be the case. I don't have any buyers or sellers that are extending because of this situation at this point in time, right? But I think any deals that are happening right now that's gonna be factored into the negotiation process.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the only thing that I got a property that's closing. The buyers reached out to me. They asked if they could actually extend the closing. I think because it was so new at the time, they were under the impression that they wanted to wait to see if this was going to blow over, and that they could then go into their lawyer's office. But I said, look, you know what? You may want to check with your lawyer because you're now doing, video conferencing. You can actually do it from your home. And so once he reached out to the lawyer, he found, okay, yeah, you actually can. So then he didn't bother trying to push the closing out. That was really the only experience that I've had with it in regards to closings.
And I think a very important thing you touched on at the beginning, Gary, was the landscape is changing so much. I think there's going to be more positives that are going to come out of this, in the sense that even doctors now, they're allowing doctors to do face-to-face video conferencing with patients at home instead of them having to go into the office. So that's where I think we're going to see a lot of things change digitally via video conferencing and DocuSign and all those kinds of things. We're going to probably see a lot more of that.
For sure. You're going to see lots of new innovations come out of this, right? I guarantee it. You're probably going to see, like, even when this first happened, I used to work at TD Bank, and I reached out to a couple friends that still work there. And they were saying that prior to them actually having to send everybody home, they didn't know how they're going to handle the workload with the VPN connections. They figured it out. So now maybe that leads to more people now maybe potentially working from home. I don't know what that's going to do to the divorce rate, right? But again, I think you're going to see lots of new innovations come out of this, right? So yes, look, I'm not, I like to look at the positives, but I also like to understand the negatives. So I want to see all spectrums of it. I just don't want to go down the dark road. I want to look at, okay, so how can we adapt in this new world that could be like this for the next couple of months? You're going to take a look at what happened over in Wuhan and how long it took for them to potentially get back. That is realistically how long it could take for us to as well too, right? Especially when they're talking about flattening the curve. But there's still some positives in there, not all negatives.
Gary,
yes.
So when you're talking about the positives and just making sure you look at both sides, what kind of variables would you keep an eye on or look at to kind of like, that would like indicate for you to be like, oh, this is a really good opportunity, like to like buy, or like, this is a good time sort of thing? Because how a lot of people are talking about, some people were like, oh, I'll buy when the home prices go down, right? But because of like Toronto or people like how the market was going, that time wasn't gonna happen. Like if there were prices were still just gonna go up. But it seems like with this, there's like a little bit of a window. Like people never saw this coming, so there might be a window at some point where prices do slide or certain things happen, whether like with the mortgage rates. So I'm just wondering, it's like, what are some of the key variables that you're gonna be like, this and this and this just happened? I was like, hey, everything is on sale.
I think it always goes back to the fundamentals that we've always taught you guys. Buy for cash flow, right? So if you buy for cash flow, you're going to be fine. Don't speculate, because when you start speculating, then you don't know. You do not know where the market's going to go. So if you're buying for cash flow, for the most part, rents are going to stay around the same. Two unit properties are great, right? Because then now, you got some affordable housing. We got tenant upstairs and tenant downstairs. And if somebody leaves, at least you still got some cash flow coming in. And the number two, and I've said this, I think, a number of times now, again, is just always go back into history and then just study it. So let's go back to 1929. I think that's important. I think this is probably the closest thing that we've come to since that time. And so when you take a look at what happened in 1929, yes, there was a lot of people that lost their jobs and lost their income and lost their shirts. But on the flip side of it, and I don't want to sound insensitive, but that is the one time in history where the most millionaires were ever created, right? And so there's a transfer of wealth. Wealth that doesn't just disappear, it just gets transferred. So if you can understand that and be on the right side of it, well, then you can be on the receiving end, right? So then now is this similar to what happened back then in that Great Depression? Probably pretty close, right? It's in that 90-year cycle, 90 to 100-year cycle. Right. And there is also like this 80-year cycle as well too. But I mean, it's within that range of 80 to 100 years. So we're about there.
Hey guys.
Yep.
Hey, how you doing? I'm Hersh. Just first time, on this chat stuff here.
Nice.
if I'm looking like I'm not paying attention, I'm actually working right now. Trying to save yourself. I'm dealing with your
English.
cell phones right now, making sure they're still working. So question is actually for the HELOCs and line of credits. Do you think it's still wise to purchase properties off of them and try to get BRRRRs or do the rentals and stuff? Because I got one, but the only question is I'm wondering is, maybe Darlene would know, is would it be wise or would the banks probably start trying to take them? It is a secured one against my rental property.
I haven't heard of the banks actually like looking at that as a negative because it's still allowable in terms of purchasing an investment property. Going back to what Gary said in the fundamentals, it's really about cash flow. So when you're purchasing a property, you really, if you are using that homeowner line of credit, okay, you're going to want to make sure that your rental income is covering that. Okay. Now on the flip side of that, prime rate has just been reduced again. So there's a good chance that those payments on that homeowner line of credit will also have been reduced.
And that, what about calling it back? Like say they want their money back type stuff.
Well, it's been secured, so I don't see that you know what I mean? It's secured, and as long as you're paying back and you're not, you know, not paying, I don't see that any reason why they would call it back. It's still a source of being liquid. Even if, let's say, you weren't buying a property, it's still a source of being liquid if you needed it to live on.
Okay, I just didn't know what the history was with that type of stuff. Like I usually never use it for that, so I'm trying to change up the method now where I'm gonna try to get some property using it.
Yeah, and that's a smart way to invest.
The banks don't change your rules. Hopefully they don't change rules. What
Yeah.
the history is on them pulling line of credit back, like taking their money back type thing.
No, I haven't heard that.
Okay, no, that's about it.
Hey guys, it's Krista.
Hey, Krista.
Sorry for missing the first little bit of the meeting. I had a work meeting that went over. So I apologize if you guys were gone over this. My property downstairs, I'm hoping to have done in a couple months. The permits did actually get approved. But with inspections, it's going to take a lot longer, et cetera. But still, it should, I'm hoping, you know, optimistically a couple months. With regards to renting, do you still see lots of movement with people, renters looking for places to stay in Peterborough? And have those prices dropped with regards to how much they'll pay for rent, considering lots of people have lost their jobs and stuff?
I can speak on that briefly, Krista. So I touched base with two clients over the weekend, and one had a tenant leaving end of March, and they have a new tenant for April 1st. And those rents, they were getting $16.75 previously. This is just a single family, and now they're going to be getting $18.75 for that property. And another one, they have a tenant leaving end of March. They were getting $18.50 for their main unit, and May 1st they have a new tenant for $18.75. So the clients I've touched base with who are going through those vacancies right now haven't had any issues right now.
Okay, super. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? No? See, look, guys, it's not that negative. It isn't. Right? There are things that are still happening. There's still things that are happening. People still have to move. You know, yes, it's there's some unfortunate things that are happening in the marketplace. I get that, but we're still moving forward, right?
Yeah, I have another question.
Yeah.
If I could, Gary. So when my property is done, does it make sense to look at BRRRRing it immediately, or should I wait, or would, I guess that's more of a Darlene question, but should I look at getting it reappraised at that time, or wait for the market to go up? Or, I mean, considering how low the interest rates are, should I try and do it right away and lock in once I get it rented?
So with regards to the rates are actually not that much lower, to be honest with you. I've actually seen rates go up because of the prime rate drop in Bank of Canada. I think it just depends. Like what I would do is maybe offline, once you're done and you have all your permits and everything, then maybe I could take a look and get a CMA to see what the comps are on that. And then we can decide from there if we want to, you know, refinance maybe even just that one portion to get some of the funds back.
Okay.
And move them into a mortgage.
Okay.
Repay any lines that you used.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I got another question. Have you guys, the real estate guys, have you guys noticed people, the Airbnbs, probably not in Durham or anything, but even in Toronto, I guess they're all freaking out now because they're not getting the revenue. Do you think that's going to be something that would affect Durham? Because I know Durham has some, but with nobody is getting these Airbnbs anymore, are they going to be turning them into rentals, or do you think that it'll maybe put more properties on the market?
I mean, for me, I mean, I'm been directly impacted by it. You know, I had a property in Oshawa where I was actually renting it out, not really so much Airbnb, fairly close to it though, but I was renting out to OPG workers. And because of what's happened, they got laid off. And so now I'm going to go back to look into to rent it out to a family. So I think there will be some impact in the short term. But in the long term, I think it'll eventually come back. All right. I don't know, Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I was just actually having a conversation with a client of mine about that, and I was watching something also on YouTube. But I believe that, see, for Durham and, you know, our market, probably not going to be a huge impact because, you know, in all honesty, there's very few. But in Toronto, certainly could have a significant impact. But I think it's going to be short term, like you said, Gary. I think you know, for the short term, there are going to be some people freaking out, and they're going to have to go and try to get it rented. And certainly, you may find some people go straight to the market. But, you know, with the fact that you can defer your mortgage right now, I mean, again, case by case, right? But with the facts that you can defer your mortgage, and if you think about it, you know, somebody who bought a one-bedroom condo for, I don't know, $650, whatever, name your price. And even if you bought it, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, you got a mortgage at $200. Are you really today, are you really going to accept $450 for it? You know, probably not. You're probably going to try to rent it, or at the very least, you're going to try to defer your mortgage, right? So do I think that it's a fire sale? No, I don't think so. Do I think that there's going to be more inventory on the rental market? Quite possibly, you know, but it might be more short term, looking for more shorter term rentals, right? So, but again, fire sale, I don't think so. Certainly not immediately. You know, 3-4 months from now, we might have a different conversation altogether.
Right. No, and look, I think again, it always kind of, you know, certain terms and that they use in history, right? The bigger they are, the harder they fall. I think again, for the smaller homes, the homes that we're buying, I think you're going to see minimal impact, if any. Larger homes that are a mil or a mil plus, I think those could take a hit. I mean, again, it did in 2017, right? So it would probably be similar to, I think, to that market.
Though, you know, frankly, I don't. Although I agree. I think that the big impact is going to be felt, if it's felt at all, in a few months from now. It's certainly not going to be April 1st. April 1st is not going to be a tough month.
Right.
May 1st might be tough, but, you know, I'm thinking we're going, you know, a little bit further beyond that. Because as I said, people can defer the mortgages, you know, obviously case by case. People can defer the mortgages. April 1st rent for most tenants is not going to be that difficult. Because, you know, they've already had 2 weeks worth of work, right? And now they can apply for EI. They can apply for CERB, which is the $2,000 a month, right? So, and some of your tenants might even be business owners, for that matter. I mean, I used to know, you know, a couple of business owners, roofers, and other things, and those guys can also apply for the benefits. So, I don't think April 1st is going to be a big deal. May 1st. You know, entirely possible. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, Gary's right. You know, the more expensive, you know, the more difficult they will be to maintain, right?
Yeah, I think the interesting part will be, and I know Quentin and Chris, you can jump in here, would be what's going to happen potentially with the small businesses and whether or not that the government is going to give them the handouts that they really need to sustain this, right?
Not that they're hoping to get.
Right.
It's just something.
Yeah. So that'll be the interesting part, right? Some of these restaurants that have completely closed down, you know, can they get that? Can they come back, or do they just decide, you know, going through the pain that they don't even want to open back up again?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I don't think it'll be completely widespread, but I definitely think you will see some not come back potentially. Mm-hmm. And then where they just transition, it's not like saying they're going to stay home now forever, but they just transition from self-employed to now being an employee or working for a larger company.
I have a question. I know your crystal ball's in the shop right now, but and some of you went through it in 2008, 2009, and you know, in 2017. Yep. Do you think there'll be more investment properties coming on the market as some investors try to become more liquid?
I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with a little bit of nudging. Sure, I think so. You know, tenants are gone. Hey, it's a good time. Good time to make to move on out. Sure.
You could also, because there'll be some people that'll be worried, right?
Yeah, and here's the other thing as well too. Let's say now some of these self-employed people, or you know, they do lose their company, or they become employees, and they end up having to sell their home, and they need to maybe get something that's a little bit more affordable. Well, then now you're going to have a market that has more tenants as well too. So you know, again, it's unfortunate that some of this stuff is happening, but you know, at least you know you're going to have potentially in an area where, being an investor, where you now have more tenants or people that are maybe a little more reliable in that area, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah. My thought is in the downtown area proper, Toronto proper, that is, I think the rent prices may come down slightly for the short term, right? Just as, but again, not immediately, you know, but in say a couple of months, once some of these Airbnb start hitting the market, assuming that they do, I think the prices in Toronto, I'm talking about rent in particular, may come down. But I do not think that that's going to be the situation in our side east of the city, because we're not going to have the same situation. And, you know, frankly, obviously, there's already a rental shortage either way you slice it.
Yeah. Like even like for my properties, like I reached out to every single tenant that I have, and I think there was two that were going to be impacted. Right. So percentage wise, it was 10%.
Hey, can we ask guys on the call, who's been impacted? In other words, right off the bat, who is not working right now? All right, now, but your business there, Sean, you are in what now?
So we're an industrial vacuum manufacturer.
Okay, so
we're an essential service because we supply to the government, the military, you know, all those kinds of businesses. But we've shut our production down because all of our production employees are afraid of it and decided to stay home.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so who else has been impacted? In other words, who else is not working right now? Like regular, you know, full time. Anyone else? So that's one.
Yeah, like I literally was laid off this morning. Up until Friday,
now I get the get up. Now I understand the get up.
Yeah, no, up until Friday, we were still working. Okay. But this morning they put us all on EI.
Now, Hirsch, I know you're with TELUS, right? Was it TELUS?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know you're working.
Yeah.
Albeit from home.
Yeah, I don't think they could shut us down. We're the ones that watch this.
No. You guys are probably working for government.
Important.
Right? So again, it doesn't look like, you know, aside from one, it doesn't look like anyone else, I mean, on this call, you know, particular.
Yeah.
Has been impacted.
What about on the other side? Does anybody anticipate any problems with their tenants in regards to paying rent come April?
I have one guy, he's just on a retirement. He's retired from GM, actually, so he got his million or whatever. So he's just sitting on it, but his stocks and stuff went down. I guess that's where he had his money in, right? So I told him, I'm like, I gave him all the details. I'm like, these are all the programs, man. Get on as much as you can. Stability, get that, whatever you can, get whatever you can. But he paid it for this month. He's like, yeah, I'm good for the next few months. I'm good. But I told him, like, get on whatever you can. But also, I was wondering, do you think I should go on that mortgage deferral just as an emergency type thing, or should I just leave it until I need it? Because I don't really like dealing with the banks. I don't like dealing with insurance. I don't like dealing with the government. So, what would you guys recommend? Should I just leave it as?
Here are our thoughts.
Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead, Dar. You don't. It's the mortgage piece.
No, all I was going to say is like our thoughts, like we said in the beginning of the other call, was really just to use it if you have to use it. Because if you have like, your cash reserve, go through that first. Because what I'm thinking is, let's say, for example, you have a rental property and now you're looking to get into another rental property, let's say within a year, okay? I think it would be very difficult for the bank to want to approve you on the next rental property if you couldn't afford it and have the cash reserve for the existing one that you had. Now, they're not saying that, I'm speculating, but I'm just saying in terms of how the bank will perceive that, I would probably do my best to make that payment, even if you have to put a payment or two on a line of credit. Make it look like you can afford it, especially if you're in the process of getting another rental property in the next few months.
That could be one of the options, one of the check boxes they add on there if you used it. That could be one of the check boxes on the applications next if you used it during the crisis, right? If you used
I mean, you want to show that you have the ability to, handle your payments even during this.
Yeah, I think that's something.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
I don't know what the fine print is. They don't tell you what the fine print is.
Exactly.
It's like you talking to somebody and they're like, yeah, well, I'll tell you later, man. Just give me the money and I'll tell you how it goes later. No.
Right. Yeah, but it's a good point though, right?
Well, I just like to have a common sense approach to it, right? Like if I lent somebody money and then they couldn't pay it, or they said, hey, you know what, I have to hold off, and now they want another loan in a few more months, like how likely am I to give them that money?
Yeah, but even the government's, what they're telling us, or the banks are telling us, like everybody seems like they have a whole different view on how they're handling this issue. So it's like, I don't know if these guys know what's going on, and then when everything gets to the right pace and they make their contracts and everything, I'm just wondering, like, what are they going to screw people over with at that point? There's going to be something wrong.
For me, it's like I don't really know if it's about screwing people over, because I think everything's happened so quickly. I don't think they've had a chance to understand what the repercussions will be. For me and like on the Butler team, it's more like we're looking at how do we protect our clients, right? So how can we advise our clients to make sure that should something else happen in the interim, what can we advise our clients to protect themselves in the very near future?
Yeah, makes sense.
Right?
Okay, cool. So listen, guys, we're getting close to the end here. I want to kind of wrap this up in the 30-minute mark, but any other pressing questions that you guys want answered?
Well, I just wanted to mention one thing quick about deferral, because I actually did do the deferral through Scotiabank. And one of the takeaways that I took from it was that you can go off it at any time. You just have to give them notification. Mm-hmm. I kind of foresaw that my company was going to lay us off, so that's why I did do it, just in case. So in the short term, I'll take it. But if my situation changes in a month or 2 months, I'll come off the deferral right away.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what it's there for, right?
Yeah, it's there for that reason.
From what we're hearing though, right, Dar, is that you're not going to be impacted by this. Right?
Yeah, and I actually reached out to both Equifax and TransUnion early last week, just to find out what their take was on that. And both of them gave me a very generic answer. Okay. And basically just said, it just depends on how your lender reports it. So I can definitely, Butler Mortgages, like Dave sent out an email blast to all his agents, which I'm sure I can, give to Gary to send out. But the stance is basically that it's not going to affect the credit. But take it with a grain of salt. And like I said before, just keep an update on what your credit report looks like.
Is that the video recording or the audio?
Yeah.
Yeah, can you send that to me? Because I'd like to send it out to
Sure.
the members. I think it'd be good for them to hear it.
Sure.
Okay, cool. If you guys don't know who Dave Butler is the owner of Butler Mortgages, obviously, right? Very knowledgeable guy when it comes to mortgages, and he has some really good contacts. So it's good to hear it from his mouth.
Yeah, and it's Daniel Patton and myself that are on his team.
Okay, cool, guys. It's 1 o'clock. I'm gonna go for a walk around the block. All right. And listen, I hope this helped you guys. And you know, again, just look for those silver linings. Don't panic. And I think we'll make it through this. I honestly do. All right. Cool. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Take care, guys.